Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights, without discrimination. International human rights law lays down the obligations of governments to act in certain ways or to refrain from certain acts, in order to promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms of individuals or groups. One of the great achievements of the United Nations is the creation of a comprehensive body of human rights law, a universal and internationally protected code to which all nations can subscribe and all people aspire. The United Nations has defined a broad range of internationally accepted rights, including civil, cultural, economic, political and social rights. It has also established mechanisms to promote and protect these rights and to assist states in carrying out their responsibilities. The foundations of this body of law are the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the General Assembly in 1945 and 1948, respectively. Since then, the United Nations has gradually expanded human rights law to encompass specific standards for women, children, persons with disabilities, minorities, and other vulnerable groups, who now possess rights that protect them from discrimination that had long been common in many societies. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, is a milestone document in the history of human rights. Drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world, the declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on December 10, 1948 by General Assembly Resolution 217A, 3, as a common standard of achievements for all peoples and all nations. It sets out, for the first time, fundamental human rights to be universally protected. Since its adoption in 1948, the UDHR has been translated into more than 500 languages, the most translated document in the world, and has inspired the constitutions of many newly independent states and many new democracies. The UDHR, together with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and its two optional protocols, on the complaints procedure and on the death penalty, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and its optional protocol, form the so-called International Bill of Human Rights. The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights entered into force in 1976. The Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights is the body of 18 independent experts that monitors implementation of the Covenant by its states parties. Its optional protocol entered into force in 2013. The human rights that the Covenant seeks to promote and protect include the right to work in just and favorable conditions, the right to social protection, to an adequate standard of living and to the highest attainable standards of physical and mental well-being, the right to education and the enjoyment of benefits of cultural freedom and scientific progress. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and its first optional protocol entered into force in 1976 and the second optional protocol came into force in 1991. The Human Rights Committee monitors the implementation of this multilateral treaty and its optional protocols. The Covenant deals with such rights as freedom of movement, equality before the law, the right to a fair trial and presumption of innocence, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, peaceful assembly, freedom of association, participation in public affairs and elections, and protection of minority rights. It prohibits arbitrary deprivation of life, torture, cruel or degrading treatment or punishment, slavery and forced labor, arbitrary arrest or detention, arbitrary interference with privacy, war propaganda, discrimination, and advocacy of racial or religious hatred. A series of international human rights treaties and other instruments adopted since 1945 have expanded the body of international human rights law. They include the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, 1948, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989, and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, 2006, among others. The Human Rights Council, established on March 15, 2006 by the General Assembly and reporting directly to it, replaced the 60-year-old UN Commission on Human Rights as the key UN intergovernmental body responsible for human rights. The Council is made up of 47 state representatives and is tasked with strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights around the globe by addressing situations of human rights violations and making recommendations on them, including responding to human rights emergencies. The most innovative feature of the Human Rights Council is the Universal Periodic Review, UPR. This unique mechanism involves a review of the human rights records of all 193 UN member states once every 4 years. The review is a cooperative, state-driven process, under the auspices of the Council, which provides the opportunity for each state to present measures taken and challenges to be met to improve the human rights situation in their country and to meet their international obligations. The review is designed to ensure universality and equality of treatment for every country and takes place during the sessions of the UPR Working Group, which meets 3 times a year. The UPR Working Group consists of the 47 members of the Council. The Human Rights Council also has special procedures that consist of independent human rights experts who have the mandate to report and advise on human rights from a thematic or country-specific perspective. These experts are not paid and are elected for 3-year mandates that can be extended for another 3 years. As of November 2023, there are 46 thematic and 14 country mandates. Since 2006, the Council has set up various investigative bodies to look into alleged violations in specific countries. These have taken the form of fact-finding missions and commissions of inquiry. In addition, there is one thematic body, the Expert Mechanism to Advance Racial Justice and Equality in Law Enforcement. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights exercises principal responsibility for UN human rights activities. The High Commissioner is mandated to respond to serious violations of human rights and to undertake preventive action. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OCHR, is the focal point for United Nations human rights activities. It serves as the Secretariat for the Human Rights Council, the treaty bodies, expert committees that monitor treaty compliance, and other UN human rights organs. It also undertakes human rights field activities. Most of the core human rights treaties have an oversight body which is responsible for reviewing the implementation of that treaty by the countries that have ratified it. Individuals, whose rights have been violated can file complaints directly to committees overseeing human rights treaties. Human rights is a cross-cutting theme in all UN policies and programs in the key areas of peace and security, development, humanitarian assistance, and economic and social affairs. As a result, virtually every UN body and specialized agency is involved to some degree in the protection of human rights. Some examples are the right to development, which is at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals, the right to food, championed by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, labor rights, defined and protected by the International Labour Organization, gender equality, which is promulgated by UN Women, the rights of children, indigenous peoples, and disabled persons. Human Rights Day is observed every year on December 10. Human Rights Day, HRD, is celebrated annually around the world on December 10 every year. The date was chosen to honor the United Nations General Assembly's adoption and proclamation, on December 10, 1948, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, the first global enunciation of human rights and one of the first major achievements of the new United Nations. The formal establishment of Human Rights Day occurred at the 317th plenary meeting of the General Assembly on December 4, 1950, when the General Assembly declared Resolution 423, v. inviting all member states and any other interested organizations to celebrate the day as they saw fit. The day is normally marked both by high-level political conferences and meetings and by cultural events and exhibitions dealing with human rights issues. Besides, it is traditionally on December 10 that the 5-yearly United Nations Prize in the field of human rights and Nobel Peace Prize are awarded. Many governmental and non-governmental organizations active in the human rights field also schedule special events to commemorate the day, as do many civil and social cause organizations. Human Rights Day is the day in 1948 the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The formal inception of Human Rights Day dates from 1950, after the Assembly passed Resolution 423, v. inviting all states and interested organizations to adopt December 10 of each year as Human Rights Day. The popularity of the day can be shown by the fact that the commemorative Human Rights Day stamp issued by the United Nations Postal Administration in 1952, received approximately 200,000 advance orders. When the General Assembly adopted the declaration, with 48 states in favor and 8 abstentions, it was proclaimed as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, towards which individuals and societies should strive by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance. The measure was received by both advocates and critics alike as being more declarative than legislative, more suggestive than binding. Although the declaration with its broad range of political, civil, economic, social, and cultural rights is not a binding document, it inspired more than 60 human rights instruments which together constitute an international standard of human rights. Today the general consent of all United Nations member states on the basic human rights laid down in the declaration makes it even stronger and emphasizes the relevance of human rights in our daily lives. The High Commissioner for Human Rights, as the main United Nations rights official, and his office plays a major role in coordinating efforts for the yearly observation of Human Rights Day. Today, poverty prevails as the gravest human rights challenge in the world. Combating poverty, deprivation, and exclusion is not a matter of charity, and it does not depend on how rich a country is. By tackling poverty as a matter of human rights obligation, the world will have a better chance of abolishing this scourge in our lifetime. Poverty eradication is an achievable goal. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Louise Arbour, December 10, 2006. The 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights occurred on December 10, 2008, and the UN Secretary-General launched a year-long campaign leading up to this anniversary. Because the UDHR holds the world record as the most translated document, except for the Bible, organizations around the globe used the year to focus on helping people everywhere learn about their rights. On December 9, 2001, President George W. Bush made a presidential proclamation that Human Rights Week began on December 9. He also made the same proclamation on December 10, 2008. In South Africa, Human Rights Day is celebrated on March 21, in remembrance of the Sharpeville massacre which took place on March 21, 1960. This massacre occurred as a result of protests against the apartheid regime in South Africa. South African Human Rights Day was declared a national holiday when the ANC was elected as the government with Nelson Mandela as the first democratically elected leader. Parliament's role on this day is to empower the people so that the democratic processes becomes known to all South Africans. It is celebrated on December 11 in Kiribati. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights turns 75. On December 10, 2023, the UN system celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The OCHR conducted a year-long commemoration, the Human Rights Initiative, during which 150 member states, NGOs, businesses, and UN entities made pledges on a wide range of human rights issues, from advancing women's rights and children's rights, to commitments on climate change, and empowering people with disabilities to ensure legislative reforms. The three main goals focus of the initiative were focused in universality, progress, and engagement under the leadership of UN Human Rights, together with its partners. The 75th anniversary culminated in a high-level event in December 2023 that announced global pledges and ideas for a vision for the future of human rights. Thank you for watching this video.